Hello and welcome to Eye on Israel. I am your host, Shahar Azani. Today, on this series, we explore the most captivating individual who are shining light on Israeli life and society, both in Israel and around the world. Today, we are honored to speak with an accomplished woman who, simply put, has committed her life to making the world a better place. She has represented Israel at many international conferences, including the United Nations, and is one of the world's leading experts in development and women's empowerment. She is not only that, but also Israel's best-kept secret. Mazal Renford, immediate past director of the Golda Meir Mount Carmel International Training Center in Haifa, Israel. Mazal, I'm so happy that you're with us today.
Thank you very much, Shahar. It's truly a pleasure for me to be here with you. I just want to apologize for my French accent and for my bad voice today, but I try to be clear.
Mazal, you are a great gift, and this is the global air that is Israel. Believe me that in the Jewish community we are not but used to diversity. I first want to ask you, what brings you to the United States?
Well, I have been approached by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to come on a speaking tour to speak about the international program of Israel for cooperation with the developing world, including cooperation with United Nations specialized agencies, and to spread the word of what we are doing since the 60s.
Right, you're talking
about... started
about
with Golda Meir.
Spreading the word.
Absolutely.
Spreading the word about what we said is Israel's best-kept secret.
Absolutely.
Something that nobody knows about. Israel's role in the developing world, Israel as a positive member in the community of nations. Maybe tell us a bit about that, about the work, about the center, about Mashav, the Israeli International Agency.
Well, on a personal level, I must say that it's a pity that it's not known abroad. What Israel does, it's incredible. I started working in this big adventure of developments immediately after I came to Israel as an immigrant. And I fell in love with that programs of Israel because I saw it as the expression of my Zionism. And I was totally involved in developmental projects in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, in Central Europe, and in all over the world. In fact, Israel, started this program when Golda Meir was the foreign minister of Israel in 1961. She went to the African continent, and there she realized that the African countries started receiving their independence one after one, and they have been left without skilled manpower. And especially, she realized that women were not taken into consideration in the process of development.
Wait, correct me if I get you right. This is Golda Meir back in the end of the 50s, the 60s, speaking about women's empowerment, women's rights, something that seems so contemporary, something that they tell me that Israel has got nothing to do with, as if it's contradictory to these notions?
Absolutely. And in 61, who spoke about women and who spoke about women's role in development? Nobody. Right. So Israel was a pioneer country in putting the gender issues on the international agenda. And we are very proud of that because today, we have been recognized by all organizations in the international community, and we work together in developing more and more programs, reaching the poorest of the poor in the developing world, and trying to help the international community to attain the Millennium Development Goals, which in fact, what are the Millennium Development Goals? 40 years after Israel started this program of international cooperation, the United Nations declared the Millennium Development Goals. And by chance, if you allow me to speak about it, in 2000, I was at the United Nations attending the Commission of the Status of Women, and I heard the Secretary General at that time, Kofi Annan, declaring the Millennium Goals. And I was listening, and I told myself, my goodness, these have been the goals of Israel from its inception. These have been the goals, the essence of our international cooperation program. We are speaking about poverty eradication, about gender equality, about universal education, combating HIV/AIDS, combating malaria diseases, ensuring a good environment. So these have been our goals since the very beginning. For us, we didn't wait 40 years to start working towards these goals.
So, Mazal, as somebody who's extremely experienced in this field, let me ask you a frank question, and a tough question also for all of us.
Yes, sure.
What went wrong? Israel has been doing this since the 60s. It's a tremendous role. How come not enough people know about it? What could we do to make sure that people know more about the role that Israel has as a state, that Mashav as an international agency has in development? Because people don't connect Israel today with development. They connect Israel with only the geopolitical conflict.
Which is a pity, really, but you said it, Shahar. This is the best kept secret of Israel, unfortunately. Why? Because we never did that for publicity, let us face it. And in fact, we are more known abroad. And you served in Kenya, in Nairobi. And you know that in Nairobi, people know about Israel's role in development, in developing their communities. And I must tell you that in Sri Lanka, very far from Israel, people know what Israel did in Sri Lanka in the field of education, in the field of community development, in the field of coping with trauma after the tsunami. Right. And I am overwhelmed when I go to these countries and to see how I am received by officials, by the people we work with, the local population. It's incredible. But in Israel, people, even in Israel, people, our communities do not know what we are doing for the benefit of the developing world.
I think you're absolutely correct. And one of the experience I had, even as a diplomat coming to Africa, was expecting to hear only about geopolitics. And the first thing I heard when I arrived in Kenya and in Africa in general was this gratitude, what we say in Hebrew, hakarat hatov,
absolutely,
for the work that Israel has done.
And when it started, allow me to mention sure. Ben Gurion. David Ben Gurion said that the principles of mutual assistance should be the basis for international relations among people, among nations. Simple. And for me, when I came to Israel and starting working in this program, for me it's like it was a part of Tikkun Olam. It's part of Metzion Tetzei Torah. So I had been totally immersed in this program because I believed in it, I still believe in it, and I think this is the best hasbara of Israel.
When did you arrive? When did you first start working in this field?
I arrived, I started working at the beginning of the 70s in this program. I started, I was young, after university, I came from Morocco originally. I was in France, but I wanted very much to come to Israel and to identify myself with something tangible, real, to feel that I am part of something. And I was lucky enough, Mazal, you know, the meaning of Mazal is luck.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to start working in this program. And I was a temporary worker at that time, and I stayed there all my life. I worked for the international cooperation for more than 35 years. My specialty is the West African countries, because I speak French, as I said, and I trained thousands and thousands of people in Israel and abroad. And when I became the director of the Golda Meir Training Center, why Golda Meir established this center, in fact? When she came back to Israel after her first trip to Africa, she made it clear to the government of Israel that it's our duty to share our know-how with the developing world. It's part of our mission. And in 1961, she organized the first international conference for women leaders in the world. The first
1961.
1961. And one of the conclusions of this conference was the establishment of an international training center where women can receive an appropriate training to be part of that process of development so much needed.
And out of this idea, the Mount Carmel Training Center was born.
It's history. 2 months after.
2 months after.
2 months after, she established the Golda Meir Training Center. This was the first training institution of Mashav. And you said that Mashav is a Hebrew acronym of the International Cooperation Program. And we are part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, working within the framework of that activity throughout the world. We work.
Is the conference still taking place?
Yes, every 2 years. The last one was on the next framework after the Millennium Development Goals, which should be attained by 2015, what would be the new sustainable development goals. And I have to mention that the gender issues, above that, there is a general debate today among the stakeholders if the gender issue should be a standalone goal or a cross-cutting issue.
Right.
So I don't know exactly what this discussion will bring, but I must say that there is so much to do for gender equality all over the world. We saw a lot of know-how which has been implemented. We saw that women have better life today, but I must say that in cooperation with UN Women, for example,
right,
which is a new entity englobing all United Nations organizations dealing with gender issues and women, UN Women has developed a program with us for the benefit of women in Africa specifically.
Right.
And we are starting a project in Kenyatta University.
Wait. I have to understand this.
Okay.
What you're talking about is Israel working with the United Nations on something positive for the world.
Absolutely.
Because we always hear about Israel and the UN in a completely different context.
We work with various United Nations specialized agencies since the 70s. I had a program with UNESCO, with UNICEF, in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in several countries of Africa.
So I have to ask you this.
Yes.
How is Israel accepted within these international organizations? We keep on hearing about criticisms, and you represented Israel in these conferences.
They approach us to cooperate with them.
Right.
It's based on the knowledge of our potentialities, of the practical approach Israel has. We don't teach theories. Our training programs are specially designed for trainers who go back to their countries after the training in Israel and implementing something new, including the grassroots level even in the poorest countries of the world, and trying to transfer the knowledge acquired in Israel to other people. So we can see the impact of this program. We can see the multiplier effect all over the world.
Tell me a bit about the impact. So people come to the center, they train.
Absolutely, they are trainers, okay? Right. Well, let me tell you about a specific program we have in Latin America, for example.
That'd be great.
Latin American countries have been targeted by the Organization of American States in terms of economic growth and what can be done for the young people who finish schools, university or colleges and do not have jobs. And this program is called Job Creation Through Entrepreneurial Training.
Right.
So
in Latin America.
In Latin America, and we bring trainers from Latin America to Israel too. But most of the time we send Israeli experts on production management, on marketing, or high-tech, to speak about technological incubators, industrial parks, how to implement, to give support to the entrepreneurial training we give. So we have been approached by the Inter-American Bank of Development at that time and by an organization which is under the auspices, which is called the Young America's Business Trust, called the YABT. Right. And the CEO of this organization came to Israel to see what can be done, how can we help them as a member of the organization, or an observer member at the OAS. And he came to me and he said, well, I am looking for money. And I said, I'm sorry, we don't have money to give you. But what we can give you is something in kind. Our expertise in training people to become entrepreneurs and to contribute to the socio-economic development of their countries.
Wow. And
to create jobs for themselves. And he said, well, he was a little bit surprised, and he said, okay. So we started corresponding and talking, and we started this project with one single course, on-the-spot course in Ecuador, working with local people in Ecuador, with local teachers at schools, how to introduce entrepreneurial training in schools in order to give the children, the youngsters, some managerial skills, some entrepreneurial skills to start a micro-enterprise, to start an income-generating activities, to make a living of it, to create business, to create a job. And this is a tremendous impact all over Latin America. Today, we are covering 29 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean islands, and this specific methodology, which has been adapted by the YABT, is called business labs, business laboratories. We in a very short time of training, it might be 1 week, it might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes, we give the possibility of the trainees to understand the concepts of business management.
Right.
How to start.
That's an ongoing project today.
Absolutely, it's an ongoing project. We have 4 activities every year in several parts of Latin America. Every year, it started in 2000. It's 40 years.
This is truly, Mazal, I have to say, the best kept secret of Israel.
Yes, and now not only we're speaking about business labs, but today we're speaking about innovation in action, about establishment of small development business centers in all the countries, about the support system which should be given by the government and by the international organizations. And that's why UNDP is cooperating with us. UN Women, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, we have a specific program only for women coming from Central Asian countries, all the former Soviet Union countries, coming to Israel and receiving that training, going back, and strengthening the capabilities of women's organizations. And it's all these activities are geared towards women's empowerment, youth empowerment, and young leadership.
Right. You know, much of the criticism against Israel is not only on the UN floor. It comes from the NGO community of development that somehow views Israel as contradictory to the notion of social justice. From your experience with these NGOs, what kind of relations, what kind of attitude did they have towards Israel?
Well, I must say that the attitude is very positive indeed. We work closely together because we have the same goals.
Right.
Israel is just simply helping them to attain these goals. And this is their interest and our interest, because in joining forces, it's in the spirit of the Paris Convention, Ghana Convention, and calling for forging forces between stakeholders from the donor countries to help the developing world to do something for themselves, by themselves, and attaining these specific Millennium Development Goals. Right now, I'm speaking to you.
For themselves, by themselves.
And today, we just give them a push. We don't have the pretension to say that, yes, our models are the best. And we are trying to dictate some of our way of doing. No, it's learning by doing based on the Israeli experience. Israel is considered as a laboratory of development. Nobody can...
Laboratory of development.
Laboratory of development, absolutely. Nobody can argue with that fact. Israel, as a young country, went through a developmental process which brought Israel from a developing society to one of the most developed countries in the world today in terms of high technology, in terms of innovation, of creativity, and we are very proud of that. This is unique in the history of nations. Nobody can argue with that. We can speak about the geopolitical situation.
So I want to jump for a minute to the geopolitics. Recently, we were told in a column by Tom Friedman in the New York Times, there was a revelation that the road to peace may not be passing through the international agreement system, but rather through, and he gave a specific example there, collaboration between Jordan, Israel, and the Palestinians on issues of environment and water. Isn't that exactly what you've been saying for 4 decades?
Absolutely, for 5 decades.
5 decades.
Well, in fact, with the Palestinian people, we started working immediately after the Oslo agreements, and we opened the door and the experience accumulated all over the years for our neighbors. And we started, Shmashav started a long project, an agricultural project with Egypt. For more than 20 years, Israel worked for the agricultural development of Egypt, together with the Egyptian people. Farmers came from Egypt to Kibbutz Brochai in the south of Israel, having the training there, go back to Egypt, training other people based on the agricultural technology Okay,
how did they respond to coming to Israel and working with
nobody spoke
Israel?
about it. Certainly not the media. Okay, the media do not emphasize the positive actions. Okay, so
unless you're on the Jewish Broadcasting Service.
Absolutely, it doesn't make a title. It doesn't make a title for the media. And we personally at the Golda Meir Training Center in 2003. Based on, we worked for the Palestinian telecommunication company in the 90s. We worked for the Palestinian Association for Vocational Training, bringing, again, young people from the Palestinian Authority to be trained on managerial training and on entrepreneurship for creating jobs and small-scale enterprises, helping them to build small business development center as a tool for support system, as a support system.
Help them help themselves.
Exactly. And we started a wonderful program between women and Israeli women and Palestinian women.
Right.
We don't speak about politics. We speak about education. And what is our role as mothers, as volunteers in our community, as educators, as community workers? What is our role? To change the mentality of our people and to educate towards peace. Because personally, I do believe that everything starts with education and finishes with education. And
that's people-to-people diplomacy.
Exactly. And we started, this program is a direct consequence of an international conference, again, for women leaders, which I organized in 2003 based on the United Nations Resolution 1325, calling governments to include women in peace negotiations.
Women's rights, development, making the world a better place, the prominent role that the State of Israel and the Jewish state has had in this regard, not when the issue became fashionable 5, 10, 15 years ago, but many decades ago, and again, as you mentioned, not for any immediate media or political gain. It came from the heart, for the heart, for the people, not giving them fish, but teaching them how to fish. Exactly. And that's a tremendous kind of experience. But I want to ask you about the human aspect. You spoke about Egyptians, you spoke about Palestinians. Here you have people coming from a society that viewed Israel in a very specific way, and suddenly they come to Haifa and they meet Mazal. What was that like? Well,
at the beginning is never easy.
Right.
But you should see the dynamics which is created after 3 or 4 days of talk. I have to tell you something, if I might.
Please.
You know, in 2003, immediately after this conference, we received, we organized the first seminar for Israeli and Palestinian women, bringing educators together, doctors together, psychologists together, to create, on a professional level, a network. Okay, and one of the young ladies who from the Palestinian side who attended this seminar, first seminar, was very quiet. And the Israelis started asking her how she thought about the Israeli society, how she imagined the Israelis before she came to that training.
Right.
And what she said, okay, look, I must speak frankly with you. I hate the Israelis.
That's what she said, there and
exactly, that day. I hate the Israelis. The only Israelis I know are soldiers and with guns, and for me, the Israelis are the devil and the soldiers are the devil. And I react very strongly. I just said, sorry, my sons, I have 2 sons, they are currently in the Israeli army. They are there to defend our country because they have no choice. My sons are not devils. My sons are decent men and have been educated for human rights, and they don't want to be there, but we have no choice. And it should be your role too, as a woman, to behave in a way that your children should be educated towards peace and not to hate the Israelis, as you are mentioning. This lady, a few years after, 2006.
Did you keep in touch?
Haifa, exactly, we kept in touch, yes. We have 1,000 Palestinian women who attend who took part in these programs. And when Haifa was bombarded by the Hezbollah in the second Lebanon war in 2006, we started receiving phone calls from the Palestinian women who have been in Haifa, asking about our families, asking about our lives. And one day, we were continued working. Of course, we were in the office. And one day, I received a phone call from this young Palestinian women who said, I hate the Israelis.
Right.
The moment the alert, the siren was calling the population to go to the shelters because we were bombarding of the same moment. Right. And my colleague said, Mazal, you are crazy. Go to the shelter. Why you are talking still in the phone? And everybody was rushing. And I told Naima, I am so sorry. I can't continue to speak to you because, look, there is an alert now. This young woman who hated the Israelis started crying and told me, please, Mazal, leave Haifa. Come with your family to Bethlehem. Here you will be safer. So something changed in attitudes, in thinking, in mentality. And each woman, I am sure that each Palestinian woman who has been in Israel is a different person. And also the Israelis who met these women, because what we want is only peace, a normal life for our children and for ourselves.
You know, Mazal, you told us today that Israel is not only a problem, but it is a great part of a solution, and not only a geopolitical solution, but a solution on a global scale, and not only when it comes to startup and technologies, but also when it comes to issues of the heart and reaching out to the world.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a very strong message
but
to hear.
There is also another component that Mashab has developed in cooperation with Denmark under the auspices of DANIDA, the International Cooperation of Denmark, for Palestinian, Jordanian, and Egyptian in the field of agriculture development, which is called regional program in for the Middle East regional program, which started in '99 and it's still continuing, and
so
bringing
a lot
scientists from these countries, scientists and professional people working together for the benefit of our
positive
region.
Energy for positive
and
work.
You might be very surprised, Shahar, to know that only during the last military operation, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we had a group in the center of in Haifa of doctors and Palestinian and Jordanian doctors and psychologists and social workers on a topic of health management. They went to Rambam Hospital on the same moment during the war, and nobody believed it, but it happened. So there are so many positive actions which are unknown. But so the big effort of Mashav is put on the developing countries, of course, of Asia, of Africa, and we work there for years and years, and we have continuing programs. And in cooperation with USAID, we have a program today in Ethiopia on agricultural development, irrigation in arid zones, water management, and
I have to tell you, I wish we had more time, but I'll tell you something. We go today with homework. For today on Jewish Broadcasting Service, we got an opportunity to learn about Israel's best-kept secret. And it is our obligation to take this knowledge we got from you today and amplify it and strengthen it. I want to thank you, Mazal. We're sure to hear more of the tremendous work and wonderful work that you've been doing, and we are so proud of you as Israel and as a Jewish community for everything that you've provided to the world on behalf of the people of Israel. That is all the time we have on today's show. Once again, I'm Shahar Azani. Thank you for tuning in and keeping an eye on Israel here on Jewish Broadcasting Service.